when they get here, we should just make them feel like they missed the most exciting 10 minutes of class ever.
Got some free tickets for the game.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Very rude of me. For those of you who haven't met Florian yet, Dr. Florian Diekman is our subject librarian for agriculture here in CFAS. And I have to say, you are one of the best resources. You've helped me find so many things, obscure things. I think there's no way I could find this within a day. You have it to me, so I'm very knowledgeable in everything agriculture, and so you're going to show us how to find things.
Thank you. So I like the idea of sitting there, but the problem is then, because I need to navigate on the screen, I'm constantly looking at the screen and not at you. So I'm trying to stay here and slip it up with the setup, but I think we can manage. So hey, I'm glad to be here, and we have a great new format. So it used to be just one hour or one class session, and now we have actually two, so we were a little bit pressed for time because I was talking about too many things, trying to get too many stuff in there. So we have two now. So I wanted to give you an overview just about the services and resources we have available for you. How many of you are from where he is undergrad students?
Other program?
So the others not. So you came from outside. So I will talk. That's good. So I will talk a little bit just to get you oriented about the library, so make sure that you know the basics and how to use that, because you will use the library even if you may not realize this. So and then we have lots of resources for you to help you to go through. And then so I will do that. And then I have a course guide that. If you have your laptop, you can actually follow along. It's under guides.osu.edu, and then just the class number 87,000. And everything that I will talk about is basically in this guide or linked through this guide, so you can kind of look at this later and review it. So we'll talk things about here, and then we thought that we could talk a little bit, since we have a little bit more time, just to talk about how to approach the search if you have a topic, and how you take this topic apart and turn this into actually a search strategy that you can use into searching our databases or resources. So a little bit of the mechanics of that, and we have a little bit of a exercise for that. So if you have a topic, that's great. If you don't have one, you have like 30 minutes to think about something. No, so just kidding. Okay, so I'm maybe I already mentioned, so I'm the food agriculture and science librarian. I'm an agronomist by training, so this is a great place to be for me. I'm also head of the food agriculture and science library, which is right in the basement. You have all been there, hopefully. It's a really nice facility, renovated a couple of years ago. And I guess since you're in the building, it doesn't really matter so much, but we do have collaborative rooms in there that you can use. So you can go online to our FAS library website, or also I have the link right here, request a reservation. So you can call me, or my supervision supervisor, Sarah Chan, and she can make reservations for any of these rooms for you. But you can also shoot me an email or go on our rooms 8 days in advance. If you go further than 8 days, we have some no shows, so we kind of limit that, but that's just the online system. So send us an email and we can get you in if you need to have a room, collaborative room over the semester, something like that. We can work with that. It's great for meeting space. It seats about 6 people, so it's 2 rooms have video streaming capabilities. So if you want to do a Skype or a Zoom or something like that, you can do that. This is what I mentioned, those spaces. And we used to meet down there. That's another thing. So that shoved off for like 30 minutes of the time I had because we were going around the library. Okay, so on the first page of this guide, I have some quick lists for you. So the emerging libraries. This is the home page. We'll talk a little bit about that. The other thing I really want to bring across is that it's not just me. So we have about 35 something subject librarians that cover all subject areas. So if I cannot help you, or if you think you want to get a second opinion or talk to someone else, maybe your topic ventures in some other subjects, health sciences, or maybe you have a GIS component or something. We have functionals and subject specialists for almost all areas, and you can just go to the subject librarians list, and it will show you. It's kind of sorted by department, subject, and then you can find these people. I can connect you to, so no worries finding these. What we have is all these people. Most of them have have guides, subject guides, and we'll come back to that later. So that's really useful. Almost all of the guides have a list of recommended resources. So one of the challenges for you will be to know which one of the 500 databases you subscribe to is the one that has most resources for you, or maybe 1, 2, 3. What are the databases that really fit in, and those subject guides have a list with recommendations. We do have some information on our homepage as well. We talk a bit. We have this research database list, but so they're sorted by subject. But even if you go to agriculture, for example, we only have limited control over this list. So it's still 48. So it's kind of hard to find out which one is the one that we want to be using. So subject guides and guides like this, I have. I will talk about this in a minute. The articles. So those are great place to find these resources. And we have a similar one for journals and ebooks. Okay. And also, I think most of you are down here in. Well, actually not. So you're online. So we're kind of spread out pretty widely. But we do have not. If I say we, so I'm with the University Libraries, but so it's not part of the college technically, administratively, I guess. But in the Worcester campus, we have a CFES Worcester Campus Library, which is part of the college. My colleague Green Short is up there. So if you ever need to be in Worcester doing research there, sometimes grad students end up doing a lot of work up there. So that's a great resource as well to check with Green Short. ATI, it also has a library there, but for you it's the CFES Worcester Campus Library, I think it's officially the name. Okay, so any questions so far? This is just an introduction. One thing that's really critical is to keep in mind that if you're on campus, all this, you don't have to worry about the access to licensed resources. So if you are the library homepage, library.osu.edu, what you should see is this green on campus. So if you're off campus, this will be red and will say that you're off campus. So you want to make sure that you're authenticated before you try to access our resources. So there are multiple ways of doing this. One is to simply navigate to this site and then click on this one, and then your name and number. It will prompt you for your name and number, and then you should be good as long as you don't close your browser. The other thing is you can just navigate to the resource you want to use. If you want to use a database or an ebook or something, you navigate to it, and then nice.
It's time now.
This morning.
So I'm Florian, I'm head of the FAS library. I'm just talking a little bit about research. We just started, so I'm just talking about the importance of using the off-campus if you're working from off-campus. So typically, if people approach me and say, I cannot access this resource, what's wrong? It's typically because there's problems with authentication. Sometimes it's on our end, so don't worry if you think that there should be access. There is no, it could be within our end. We often have problems with that. But let me know though, then I can look into this. But often it's really this authentication. The other thing is that sometimes you want to access. I always teach people to subscribe to new topic alerts. You can go to a journal, something that you read frequently, and you sign up either on a feed or an email to get alerts when new articles coming out. The problem is that sometimes these will be very new articles as well. So those articles that are published, but they are not assigned to a volume yet or to an issue yet, so they're not out yet. Sometimes this is part of a subscription and sometimes it's not. So it can be a little bit confusing. You think you should have access because we have access to the journal, but depending on the contract terms, you might not actually have access. Or sometimes if you're off campus, this functionality is kind of blocked. So in this case, we have the Article Express service. So that's our delivery service. So whenever you hit like a paywall, so you want to access an article in full text and they ask you to pay like $30 with your credit card or something like that, that's paywall. So in this case, assuming you're authenticated properly and everything, use the Article Express service. So the first time you use that, there's a little video down here that you can watch. It's very simple. Just sign up the first time and then you should be good to go with your name and number. And then you just fill out the form. We now have a field in there where you can just plug in the DOI, digital object identifier. Every journal article that comes out has a unique identifier. It's a DOI number that's sitting there. You can just plug this in and it will populate all the fields for you. So still probably 2 or 3 clicks, but better than before. If you're coming through a database and you will see there's a find it button, you go to the find it button and it detects that we actually don't have this resource or we don't have it in print, then you will see a link to the Article Express service. Just click on that link and then log in, and then all the fields should be populated for you. Double check and just send it in. We're really fast. So whenever we get requests, they told me the other day that about 80%, 85% of the requests are without human interactions anymore. So we get this automatically from other libraries that we're partnering with, and that's a little bit difficult to explain. Sometimes we don't have a subscription to resources, but we're part of the Big Ten or ANA consortia. We know that we can rely on their subscriptions, which is at a whole lot cheaper than if we all subscribe to the same resources. So there's a little bit of sharing going on. So sometimes I know it's annoying because you have this additional clicks and you have to go through, but we can subscribe to everything and pay for everything. So that's why we have this service. It's really fast. Usually if we really have it or one of our partners have it, it's a matter of hours to get this in. You will get an email and then from there. It also works for print. So if you have something here in the library or across campus or in Worcester somewhere and you want to print, and then you realize it's only in print, just put the Article Express in, we go and we scan it for you. So we always deliver it. So it also works for book chapters. So not entire books because of copyright limitations, but it works for book chapters as well.
But you also only get access to it for like 30 days, so you need to go and print or download whatever it is that you asked for.
And they monitor this. So if you don't go in, I'm just kidding, but they're kind of keeping track of how many requests do we get and how many people are actually using. When we send the email out and actually are they using it. So some candidates that put in a lot of requests, but then they never really bother picking up the PDFs that we got from them. So, but I have not heard that we ever discontinued excluded someone for using that service. I was about to say something. Yeah, we'll come back. There's something related. Okay. So one thing, I know you're all using Google Scholar, and that's a great resource for what it is. It does full text searches, and a lot of databases that we don't have this capability. But the only way to really link to our license resources is to have your library settings. How many know about the library settings? A few. So maybe I just walk you through to make sure it's under this whatever this menu is, settings, library links, and then Draft Campus, it won't say Ohio State University Libraries, just Google Ohio State libraries. And then you check that box, and then whenever you do a search now, you will, next to your results list, you will see the Find It at OSU button. and that's your link to our license resources. If you're on campus, you don't have to worry, but if you're off campus, this is the only way to really link reliable to our resources. And you have in Google Scholar, you have lots of options, so you have, their PDFs and, there goes to ResearchGate or something. So you will have other options you may not really need the final link, but it is there. So that's important to have the Google Scholar set in mind. Any questions about access? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the it's kind of hard to read from so you will see that the default of this is a discovery theme or the discovery system, and that's a federated search. Federated means that it searches different resources at the same time. So it's research databases for articles, such as the library catalog. There's a lot of special collection content, also digital collections, and then social library websites. So Discovery is an in-house product that we kind of developed ourselves. I just want you to aware that if you don't change anything, you end up in the Discovery layer. I recommend not just avoid this. Just don't use the Discovery layer. It will get you to something, but it's difficult to really go through that. You only see like the top three resources, and we haven't quite figured out the relevance ranking right. So a lot of the results are not really super useful for our subject fields like life sciences. So they really work well for, I think, for like special collections, humanities, that have a different needs in terms of resources. What bothers me really is that if you do a search in here and you search the catalog, it actually gives you a different result list than when you actually search the catalog. To me, if you name a thing the same, it has to function the same way, and it doesn't this way, at least not yet. So just want to be aware, people are often confused. It's a default, so if you plug something in here, it does something different than if you actually go to the catalog. So WordCat, we used this before. We have this for many years. So that's it's also a federated search, so it also searches a lot of different places. It kind of works for undergrad research pretty well. You see it has all these databases. It has academic search complete, so that's the backbone of this, at least for our field. So it kind of works nicely for that, and you will get something. But now that you're in a grad program, I think your needs are a little bit different, and you're much better off with actually going to that resource and use the full capabilities of that whatever the resource is, what that platform is. Even with academic search complete, you're much better off with actually navigating to that resource and build your search in there, do your searches in there, than letting Discovery do this work. So, I mean, if you are, depends on what you're doing, really. I mean, if your task is to find 5 resources given you, this will do it. But if you're working for, semester-long paper or something, or maybe a thesis or something, you want something better than this resource. So, talk a little bit about too long for something that I don't really want you to use. So, so if you don't mind, you can ignore these things and then go straight to the books and more. This is our catalog. So this is whenever you need to find out if we have something or if we own something or have access to something. It's not about ownership anymore, it's really about access. So a lot of things will be as an ebook, which we have licensed, so you don't really own it. It's all in the catalog. So and you can use default strict keyword search, and you can change this to whatever. Everything we own, journal articles, journals, journal titles, research databases, but you cannot find individual articles. You have to go to the database. Everything else is in there. Any questions about the catalog? Do you want me to show anything? I think you can figure it out. So I may skip that. So if you do a search, then it will actually tell you if it's in a physical location, it will actually tell you the location. It will tell you whether it's available or not. And then on top, you have to see request this item. If you don't see something in the catalog, you can branch out to Ohio Link, which is the consortium of all research libraries in Ohio, about 88, 90 research academic libraries in Ohio, including the state library. So if you have a textbook or something, and all the copies that we have are checked out, you can try Ohio link. It's just a click, and see whether there are any copies from Ohio link, and you can request it. You can have a request to any location and from any location in Ohio. So and if you're not happy with Ohio link, actually you will see a search Ohio link on top, which is all the public libraries. So sometimes this is a great place as well. So any questions so far? So this is about really finding books. And okay, let me talk a little bit about and here a few things you can know how to make most of that. Okay, so finding articles. So research, I mean, already mentioned we have so many databases. It's often a challenge to really find which one. They're all different in their scope. So so there are ones that are really broad, multidisciplinary, having a lot of content. Then we have databases that kind of similar, but are much more narrow. So in a way, it can be easier to navigate those, but it doesn't have the same depth than other. Some are tracking citations. This can be useful, and others are very specific to subject fields. So if you have a certain need for a topic, you really need to know what you're searching in order to make sure that that you're actually getting to the literature you're looking for. So even if you have the best research strategy in place, but if you're looking at the wrong database, you will not find anything. You will get a sense of it, whether it makes sense or not. And there's also some of the data I will show you in a minute, they will actually search multiple databases within the same interface, and you can kind of get a sense of what the place is where you probably should get a little bit more closely. Okay, so we have some lists here. The research database I showed you already, and then the other place is the guides that I mentioned. Those are really great resources to look at, and then I put something in here that I recommend. So the first three, Scopus, Web of Science, and Academic Search Complete, are sort of general databases. They're covering a lot of different fields. Scopus is the largest abstract database there is. It's a really great resource, and I will show this a little bit more. It's a very powerful interface that does a lot of things. One of the things it does is it actually, everything is linked to each other. So maybe, how to do this? I will come back to that. So I'll pause that because we have this exercise, and I don't want to duplicate things on time. So that's a great start. It has everything in there. No other database has as many indexes, as many journals, and this one is really great in the sciences. A little bit less coverage in social sciences, and then it's a bit spotty in humanities, which has something to do with the way the humanities communication works. So they rely heavily on books and conference and other resources that are not really well represented in these databases. Scopus tracks citations, I can mention that, so that can be a really powerful way of searching the literature. So you can look backwards, obviously. So if you have an article that cites previous works, obviously that goes backward. But then it also tracks citations that are coming into this item and then goes forward. So that's a really powerful way of finding new content. So Web of Science. Scopus also indexes Medline. So if you are looking at something health related, it will be in there as well. So that's a nice. What's that on? Okay, Web of Science. This is the most selective database. For many researchers in this college, this is the only place they really go. It only has the highest quality content in there. So if you heard about the Journal Citation Index, that index is based on these articles on this database. So it's more selective. but it has everything we really need. So it has in our fields. So it may not have everything there is, but it really covers 80 or 90% of that content. That's the idea of the citation index, is where do you go, whereas you go to one place and it has 80 or 90% of the content in Web of Science was built around this idea. It has a little bit different functionality, but in a way it works very similar to Scopus. They all work very similar. You also have other databases in here as well. Maybe not so relevant for your subjects, but it is a lot of things in here. Medline is in here as well. It also has you can have researches, but it has what's called an emergent citation index, and that's a way or an attempt to kind of counter the breadth of the Scopus database. So they added a lot of resources which are not part of the journal citation report, but they are like journal of extension. We talked about this yesterday, so they are now all indexed in the Web of Science database. And if you do a search in there, where it just tell you where it pulled the content from, you can look at your database, you search your databases, and it will tell you where it found whatever you're looking for. So let's say maybe BioSys, or let's say core collection or something like that, or let's say Medline. That's an indication for you that maybe you should go to these places, or maybe you restrict your search to this and get a little bit more. Yeah, in there. Okay, so that's Web of Science. I skip Academic Search Complete. I think you're most familiar with them. That's the apps. Maybe I should skip it. One thing I should show you. That's the apps database. One thing about Academic Search Complete is that you can add a lot of databases, and they work on this with the same platform. So if you have like a curriculum, you can just check this, right? Or ERIC, education research complete, communication, mass media complete, or something like that. So you can click all these places if you don't really know which one might have things that you're looking for, and then search them all in one, and then you can kind of get an idea where your content is in. The other thing to know here is that it defaults to find all my search terms. So basically, essentially, it does an end search. So you have to. We will talk later about Boolean searches, which I really want you to use. So take advantage of the advanced search. So spell out the concept, the same concept in one line, combine it with separate concept in the second line, and so on. And so you have to switch this to Boolean. This works as well, but you get better. You just get better results. You can also check the peer review here, but I think you're beyond that, so you don't have to get so if you are in Web of Science, Scopus, you don't have to worry about this. It's all peer reviewed. Okay. Abstract. It's probably the premier database in the applied life sciences. So if you work maybe with so there's all agriculture, natural resources, conservation, great coverage of developing countries. So they really are unique and distinct from the other databases. So whether you search Scopus or Web of Science, doesn't really, it's more a matter of personal preference, and Abstract will give you a different set. So that's might be a borderline for your subjects, but there's a lot of social sciences content in there as well, and of course agriculture. It's not what it used to be, but it's still good coverage of the agriculture fields. And then I think for you, for education research complete, other databases that I don't know the communication folks. It's kind of because it's spread out so far. It's kind of difficult to.
Yeah, I use communication and mass comm.
Yeah, and that's good. And that's an good database. So, any questions about? Have any of you used any of these databases? Familiar, Scopus, Web of Science? Okay. I have here a tab with tutorials. So if you haven't used them or you just need a refresher, just like 5 minutes or 10 minutes videos. Those are great to get acquainted with mechanics of searching this. You can link it, from any of the databases. There's this help button. It won't get you there, but you can also just watch it here. So I saved that time. I put some resources in, but news articles, so you can go through yourself. So we have a lot of newspapers, but they come in all different shapes, so to speak, right? So New York Times and Wall Street Journal, we don't have the actual copy, so it's the text. So you can analyze it, so that's great. But if you want to have an article reproduced as it appeared, like from the edition or something, unfortunately, you don't have that. So you have to use your personal subscription for that, or you have to purchase that. With Access Ohio, so if you have images in there, sometimes they have these great graphics and you don't have them, so it's really annoying. Access Ohio is a very nice database that covers a lot of Ohio newspapers, historical, but also contemporary. So, and we actually have the Crimes Dispatch, for example, we have the actual e-edition in there. So if you want to read the Crimes Dispatch, so it's nice if you have, if your topic requires you to look at, in the press and see what the newspapers have reported on. So then we have lots of resources here. You can find out resources. Statistical data. I just put this out there in case you need something. Most of this is actually freely available, so it's USDA government data. DataGov is sort of the central database of the US government, goes back to the Obama administration. And that's a great starting point if you don't really know in which agency your data set may live that you're looking for. This is a great way. It doesn't have everything in there, but it should give you enough leads so you can find out, is it USDA or is it energy or some others. So that's a great resource. And we have some commercial stuff in here, like Data Planet and Sage, but you will find that they harvest actually a lot of freely available content and just repackage that. You have some really nice capabilities to create publication-ready graphics, and you can export it within, but you can also use that to really find the agency that has this data and then go there and download it from there, which I would recommend doing. Okay, so web, I'm going to skip this. The writing resources. So you probably know this, but we have all the thesis and dissertations in Ohio in the Ohio Link EDT, Electronic Thesis and Dissertation Database. So if you want to look at work that was done in this department previously, you can use that resource. And all the master thesis, almost all. I think you can opt out if you have good reasons. I think most of them are in there, also dissertations. So that's a great way to kind of see how your work is supposed to look, right? And dissertation, though, it's good to kind of review. And then Progressed is really the big database for all of North America. A lot of content from overseas in there. So we actually had all the dissertations, forever went into Progress, even ours, and then it was cheaper for us to purchase them all back. It's ours, and we gave them to Progress, and we bought them all back, purchased them all back, the digital copy, so that freely available in the EDT, because scanning all this would be a lot more expensive than just buying back the way we did. So it's kind of awful if you have to buy your own content back. Yeah. That's how it is. Okay, some resources here. So that's not really our domain in libraries, but the Writing Center. We will have about this in probably other classes. That's a great resource here on campus. Right, we'll talk about this somehow. Maybe you're talking with them. So they are part of the Center of the Study and Teaching Writing, and they have this Writing Center. And they do drop-in hours in Thompson Library, so you can just walk up there and meet with them. I think it's 20 minutes. But they are not just fun events. There's often a bit of a misunderstanding. They really work with grad students, postdocs, faculty, They do a lot of great, they don't write the paper for you, obviously, but they have a lot of great suggestions. So, and they also do online consultations, so you don't even have to go there. They chat with you, so it's a great, really a great resource. And then it looks like they're getting better every year. So they have ours in the Thompson, but also in the 18th in the library, which I understand they also will be visiting research comments. So, and then my colleague from Purdue Library have this wonderful online writing lab with all resources that you can imagine related to academic writing. So you can, it's a great resource. You can read from beginning to end, and it's great. You can just search for it if you need to browse through it. Also, they have, we'll talk about this in the second part, but they also have all the style guides, and those, these style guides are not just how you format your citations. So that's most important, probably. You know, if you say APA style is what you're using in this department, but this is not just how to format your bibliography or your text citation. It's how you actually structure your whole text. So there are very detailed guidelines that are part of the whole guide. Mostly we're only looking at the citations, but really it is much more than just that. Yeah, we have print copies of that. We cannot buy them online, right? Because they only sell this as a package, which is ridiculous. So we have constant negotiations with them to come up with something better. But you can actually go through this Purdue guide, and it has everything you need. So it's a great resource. The two other products, you're probably familiar with Journalin. So that's for student papers. So that's a database that you actually have to upload your content. So most of you, many of you will be also BTAs or instructors. So that's probably something you will be using. And there's some resources here. Actually, this will link to the instructor information, I think. Yeah, it's for instructors. So I thought you're probably more instructors than students at this point. So there are resources how to use that. But the other thing that's really more important is authenticate. And that is a resource that if you're starting to publish your own literature, I mean, if you publish your own journal articles, but even for your dissertations, we have access to iAuthenticate. So that compares your work with 40 million something published articles. Almost all editors of academic journals using iAuthenticate to check submissions before they go out, even before they go into, well, it depends on, before they publish it. At some point in the editorial, in the review process, they will run by iAuthenticate. And you will encounter sometimes they will come back and it will say, you know, iAuthenticate flagged your paper with 40% similarities, you know, what's going on. One of the things, I don't want to spend time on this, but if you go in, it will have all the things will color coded and will give you percentages for different sections. You actually have to go in and look at all these places and see what's actually happening. And there's only so many ways to describe a method, right? So it may actually not be that resonant, but the software won't know this. It will just tell you that this piece is also in this resource. So you have to make, you have to analyze this yourself. And a lot of editors don't, so they rely on you to explain why this has been flagged so high. So a lot of people don't know we have this, so it's in here. And then copyright. They do a lot of consultations if you're, so this is both ways. So resources you might be using, images, figures from other places, can use this in your work, but then also how can you protect your work from others stealing it. Okay, so I want to talk, and I'm a little bit behind, but I think we can still do that. I want to a little bit talk about, if you are not any questions so far, a little bit talk about how to actually structure a search. And I have a lot of resources together on this side. So So you start with your question, and if you have the question worded out the right way, I'll give you some hints how to do this. You can actually get the main concepts right out of your question. So here's an example, and then you put them in we call it a concept grid or concept matrix. So here, for example, when I teach of attitudes in smoking, right? So you see right away at least two concepts, actually three in there, right? So teenagers, main concept, smoking, sedation is another concept, quitting smoking, attitudes could be another concept in that as well. And then you just write this out in different concepts, and then the next step would be actually finding alternative terms, similar terms, right? Depending on in which fields you are, you can use thesaurus like the NL CAP for ag stuff, but then also like, oops, this is the wrong one. Yeah. This is for Eric. So if you have anything, I don't know, environmental education or something like that, it will tell you the order terms, numeric terms, and how the terms are mapped, show you related terms, and you want to go through all those terms and see how you can add them, use them. Oops. Okay, so, and then you grow your grid, right? So you don't want to use teenagers, right? Because it may not be really the accurate term that is used in the academic literature. Same like people use. So it's a very basic example, but I think you get the idea. So you keep all the concepts separated. You're just finding more terms to it, and you combine them. So if you have them. Those are all similar terms, right? So those would be terms that you combine with the OR operator, very simple, because you only want a resource that has any of this, one of these terms. And remember, it searches typically title, abstract, and keywords and honor supplies and descriptor terms that might be added by the database. It used to be librarians doing this, or the database providers, but these days it's all machine learning, so they're automatically assigned from input from contribute vocabulary. So you have to make sure that you understand what the database is using. And then the end is really to combine the the different concepts together. Okay, so here I have an example. And then just keep in mind, so if you search for phrases, you have to put them in quotation marks. So it will, like environmental education, so if this is the term you're looking for, describes a certain concept, or organic farming or something like that, it may find it, but it won't be buried in the results list somewhere. So you want to make sure if you're really after these terms that you put in quotation mark. Truncation, you don't have to worry too much about it. I like to add it just to be sure. So if you have education, then it will find all these variants of that. That's often useful. Most databases do this automatically. They use word stemming, and they reduce keyword term to the word stem. And DAS is not all do this, but most actually do this. Okay, a little bit about quantitative keywords. You can just throw them in as concepts. And they are always a little bit tricky because they may or may not work. So you have to play around, and you really have to be a bit creative with coming up with alternative terms. Methodology, you can use this as a concept. Anything related to data analysis, data collection, you can use this. And then if you do mixed method research, use that as well in there. So that may not be represented in this question, but you may actually be after certain methodologies or certain qualitative aspects there. So you have to really think broadly about this. What I really want to do, and I'm running short with that.
Like 4 minutes.
4 minutes. So I think we can still do that. I may give you an assignment. Can I do that? Yeah. So what we have used in the labs, and this is not this is just the basic framework. it's not more than that. There's no a lot of empirical thought. This is just something that came out of the evidence synthesis world in the health sciences. They found it really useful to, if you want to reflect on the questions and tease out the key concepts and components, you can use search frameworks for that. And the most popular one is the PICO framework. And PICO stands for Population, Intervention, Control, and Outcome. And it really works great for intervention questions. Some of what you do has not really intervention question, might be just an observation or something. But a lot can be thought as an intervention, okay? So what I actually wanted to do, I will just give you this to do this at home, I guess, and then can we do this?
Yeah.
We don't have to do this. We come back next week because we have another session. But I thought what we could do is you have maybe an idea, maybe you have a topic or something you want to work on, and then we could actually sit down and walk you through this PICO framework. And there's a worksheet. I can hand this out maybe, and you can take a look at that, how this works. There are other frameworks like SPIDER that really works in education well, sample, phenomenon design, evaluation, research type. So you basically go through this different, you have your topic and you go through this different categories, and you try to tease out what you're really looking for. And then you can turn on, when you have this worksheet, you can go through a very simple process, step by step, just what I talked about here. So you have the different elements, you turn them into the question, and then you have different concepts, you look for alternative terms in each of these concepts, you combine them with, or you combine the different concepts. And like in no time, you have a complete search strategy in place even before you start looking at it. It's a really effective way of getting started. So if you have a good question, your search will be so much more easier and systematic and precise than if you just randomly trying keywords and hoping to get something out. And I had hoped to be a bit earlier than that so that we could actually work on this here. How do we do this? What's the best way?
Well, on the bottom of that page, is there, isn't there a filled out worksheet?
I
So
have an
there's,
example right here. And so next week we'll come back and actually we'll show you how to use that database structure search approach in a database. But we have a question here, and it's the same that is sitting here. So this is an example, and I use this from an actual publication. So we were looking for effects of on-farm conservation and management strategies for preserving ecosystem services in developing countries, right? So very straightforward, the population, you look at the question, it could be farmers, but I think it's farms, so you have to make this decision. So that's definitely one concept. The other one, the developing countries, right? And then the intervention, right? The comparison, and then the outcome terms. So I guess
so the thought
pause for a
was,
few minutes, but yeah, the idea was to
in
we
this,
do this next week.
Well, we meet again in about a month, and we're gonna look at
Okay.
like Zotero.
Right. So the next time what we do, we take this, we will do a search in actual database. I'll show you how to do that, and what you can do in that interface once you have done this, and then how to organize within the database in lists and in folders, and then we will export the whole thing into a citation management software, Zotero probably. And then I can also set you up. So if you have devices and you can bring them in, we can also set you up for that. And then if I have time, we'll talk a little bit about scoring metrics and how to build an academic profile in the online world.
I think for this week you have an assignment, and it was going to be this sort of in class. The thought was that you would do more in class and then have like a one paragraph reflection on what you learned or struggles. And so we might just hold true to that. And if you just use this worksheet as a guide, and if you're getting stuck, there's a completed one that just gives some
Right.
examples. And then the assignment will be just less than a page, just a paragraph about things that you found helpful, struggles you had, questions that you have, just a reflection on this assignment. And then we'll use that to help with our next class as well.
I have to say, it's most useful if you actually have something to research. So it's kind of difficult to do this in theoretical. So if you want to just hold on to this, if you come to me, we do a consultation, or if you go to any of the librarians, they all have variants of this thing to walk through. Some actually require something like this before they even come to have your question kind of structured. So it's something that's, you will encounter in the future. So if you just want to hold on to this and try to remember that you have it, you're getting actually starting research on a paper or an assignment. So that was the idea.
Okay. Any questions?
So I'm in the library, so stop by and email me or call me if you have any questions. And I will be back, but in the meantime.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Okay.
it.
I'd say those of us who have been to other universities, if you hit a paywall on an article and you still have a login, you may be able to access it through that.